Welcome to Let's Chat, the podcast where we talk about the green industry and how we can all improve. If you own a lawn or landscape business or a fertilization business, anything in that space, these podcasts are designed to make you better and make your company better. I'm really excited because today we got with us Adam Linnemann from the Green Executive. He's a consultant, and I think this is just going to be some great information that he's going to provide. Adam, I really appreciate you joining today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we begin, and you just give us kind of like an overview of the Green Executive.
Sure. To be honest with you, the overview of the Green Executive was the start of a retirement plan for myself and for my wife. A little bit about me, just 10 seconds, is I own a landscaping business in the St. Louis metropolitan area. I've had that for 31 years. And the Green Executive in 2017 was a startup of a consulting business, helping others grow and be better at business, which has flourished. And now we are busy helping other contractors, specifically to the landscape industry, grow and be more profitable.
That's fantastic. 31 years, and you still own that business.
I'm here today.
Do you mind sharing with us the size of your business?
Sure. We do about 1.5 million in revenue, so not a humongous business, but not a small business. And we have had up to about 25 team members at our company in the past at any given time. Right now, we're still doing the same revenue as what we did back 6-7 years ago with 8 people. So we became smarter and have focused on more expensive billable work and increased our profits.
And you're the founder of the Green Executive, so you're running the Green Executive and you're running your own business in the lawn, the lawn business. So you got a lot on your plate. So
it keeps me busy.
So what are like the unique challenges that you see lawn care people see, and the biggest things that you see that they're making mistakes on that are easy things for people to fix?
The biggest mistake that I see is they don't know how to and what to charge properly to recover their cost and overhead and enough to make a profit. I think some would say that determining what that number actually should be for each business is challenging. There's softwares out there, there's practices out there such as practicing profit first, which we'll talk more about that later, but there's different things out there that will help them determine their numbers. But that's the number one thing that I see, is that contractors just aren't successful because they don't know what to charge and how to make a profit and how to do that consistently.
Right. Adam, I got to tell you, like, you got 31 years of experience, and I do want to touch on what other services you offer at the Green Executive. But obviously, we've talked several times, and when we work together, I obviously help people sell lawn and landscape businesses. I specialize in that industry, and that's why I was really excited about having you on the podcast because somebody working with you, it's only going to make their business more sellable when they go to sell, because 10 to 20% of the businesses for sale don't sell. And not only you want to make it more sellable, but make it so that the business owner is going to maximize their sales price and they are going to get the best terms possible. So I'm really glad we're going to have you on there. And I hope that people that are out there listening that are thinking about selling their business in a couple of years, they reach out to me, but you also reach out to Adam here and talk to Adam so that he can strengthen your business so that you can maximize that sales price. And in the intro, you had said that that's kind of what you key in on too, right?
Yeah, obviously a business that is self-sufficient, that can run without the owner being there, that can pay the owner a fair and healthy salary and turn a profit, I want to stress that, makes a business more saleable.
It absolutely does, Adam. It really does. And you actually take it one step further because you're saying that the business, if they don't need the owner, you try to position the company in there, like buyers absolutely love that kind of a scenario. I look at it as the owner can work in that business and, be a full-time, employee, let's say, in the business, and it can still be sellable. The key thing for me is that the business isn't dependent on the owner themselves, where the owners walking away and the relationships with the customer base are going out the door as well, or the business is just going to fall apart. If you're in a situation as an owner and you can't even take a week vacation or a 2 week vacation, during the year without the business being affected, it really hurts. But I love the fact that you're taking it one step further than what I look at. That makes it even more sellable and more interest to a buyer. So kudos to what you're doing there.
Well, I'm excited that we met, because let's be honest, there's a lot of coaches and consultants out there, even in the landscaping industry. There's a lot of coaches and consultants in all different industries. There's other people that help with acquisitions and mergers. But what makes, I think, you and I a great topic to our conversation piece, and why people should be listening, is specifically if they're in the lawn and landscaping business, is because we niche down in this, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a heart problem, you don't go to a general practitioner,
right?
You go to a heart doctor, right? So if you have a lawn or landscape business that you want to buy or sell, go talk to you, Jim, right? If someone needs help with growing their business and being more profitable, they should go to a coach or a consultant specific to the green industry. I think that's really important.
I do too. I think it's really important that, for consulting, or if you're going to sell your business, it's really important you go to somebody that specializes in that industry, that has the experience and has the expertise. And obviously with 31 years of experience, you fit that bill on your end. And I totally agree with you 100%. One of the specialists is important. I think this is really important too. And I don't want the podcast to go too long without us, saying this, and people that listen to my, some of my podcasts or read articles from me, I always say this, but I don't think it can be said enough, is that, right now it's estimated, according to Forbes magazine, that 40% of all small business owners in the United States were born before 1964. So we have this whole wave of that baby boomer generation that's getting ready to retire and that's going to be selling their business. And what breaks my heart all the time, Adam, is when a business owner will call me up, and a lot of times they'll call me up and say, "Hey, I'm looking to sell my business. I want to sell it as soon as possible. I want to retire. I want to spend more time with the grandkids. I want to travel with the wife, et cetera, et cetera." And sometimes I'm talking to the business owner, and I'm like, you're not going to be able to sell right now. I mean, there's too many things going on in your business, and some of the things that you're doing is going to make the business either very unsellable, or you're going to get a fraction of what you could get as a sales price. And these aren't major fixes. These are like more simple fixes that they can make to change that up so that it could be in that situation. But the thing is that, from an SBA lending standpoint, just one scenario is that, the lenders are going to want at least 2 years of good cash flow. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing I see business owners doing is running tons of personal expenses through the business. And,
Sure.
You try to save the money on the taxes, but then when you go to sell your business, a lot of times you're not going to recapture that kind of money. What are some of the big things that you see that people can do to make changes right before they sell? I know you talked about the, that the business, being able to run without the owner. Is there any other key things that you're seeing?
Yeah. I think it could be something as simple as making sure that the business is like using technology. I mean, back in 2011, I bought out a fertilization business. And when I bought the business out from the gentleman, his books were on pen and paper. So something simple like making sure your business is up to date with technology. You're running on a platform that can easily be handed off to someone else that's going to buy the business. That's just something right there that could make the business a little bit more valuable. I think having something as simple as a strong social media following is important too.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of companies that haven't posted on, their Facebook page or wherever they have advertisements in 2 or 3 years. Right. So you want to have that. You want to have email addresses of your clients.
Oh, that's huge.
That
is,
to where you can market to them, to where you can send out e-newsletters. If you don't have just some of those simple things in place, I believe that that's not great for selling a business these days, right? Or at least it puts a hit on you for the value.
Absolutely. And some of these things that we're going to be talking about, and I want to continue to talk about different things that we see, and some of the things that we talk about, even if you're not thinking about selling your business, first of all, you never know. I mean, sometimes I hear talk to a business owner and they'll be like, I'm never going to sell my business. I love it, da da da. And then they call me, unfortunately, 6 months later because something unexpected happened in their life, and they have to sell, unfortunately. And so even if you don't think you're going to be able to sell, but my point is that the things that you and I are talking about, and the things that you do, and the advice that I give to people, even if you're not looking to sell your business, it's probably going to make your business a better business at the end of the day, and make your life less stressful. You
Right.
know, and
Sure.
I like the thing about the emails too, because that provides you the opportunity to do upselling to your
Sure.
clients instead of just the normal maintenance. If you're a maintenance type company trying to do upsells later. And I
Yeah.
love the fact, Adam, that you touched on the financials. Talk about that one client that was handwriting everything down and
Mhm.
printing everything. And from my perspective, when a buyer goes under contract, they are going to want to they're going to have the opportunity to do a due diligence to make
Mhm.
sure that all the information that's been provided for them is true and accurate. And you need to have profit and loss statements. You got to have access to the bank statements and the merchant service statements and all the information that a buyer is going to be asking for.
Sure.
And what do you see? What else do you see, Adam,
You
out
had
there?
mentioned earlier
I'm going to
about
keep
like,
picking your brain until you're
yeah,
like, Jim, I can't think of anything else
you had mentioned
off the top of
earlier
my head.
about taking too much from the business personally. I think it's important to just have clarity on what that looks like, and then try not to commingle your finances with your business too much. Right. Once again, you want to be able to show that you, the owner, is an employee of the business, and is getting a regular steady paycheck, whatever that looks like. You know, I always say that, and that's what a lot of contractors don't get is they pull from the business when there is maybe money left over, and they're not able to pay themselves on a regular, consistent get a paycheck that way. And so, what I recommend doing, what I did back years and years ago, is I just started paying myself minimum wage. At the time when I started, I mean, I'm talking, I was 20 years old. I was paying myself
Hmm.
$10 an hour, 40 hours a week. I was pulling $400 a week. And then when I felt comfortable with that, I started raising it more and raising it more and raising it more, you know. And by doing that, it doesn't hurt so bad. And then you realize that, hey, I'm working in the business, and if I wasn't here, I'd have to hire someone else to do the same job that I'm doing. So I got to be getting paid. So
Yeah.
start paying yourself as an owner something consistently, and then slowly move that up, after 6 months, after a year, and so on, to where it gets to be what you're really worth.
Adam, you hit it right on the head. And I think that's a lot of what business owners, and especially in like the green space, where you have seasons where your costs might be really really high, and you're doing a lot of work because and your costs end up being high, and you're not as profitable. And then there's other times in the season you're very profitable. And I see this all the time with small business owners. What they're doing is that they are during the times where the business is very profitable, they're taking a lot of money out of the business. And then
Mhm.
and they're spending it personally. They're
Right.
spending it. It's gone. And then during the times where the costs are higher and they're not able to pull as much money out of the business, they are then they can't take any money out of the business. So that's that feast and famine type of a situation. And I love what you're saying, and what you're recommending is just getting on a pay that is going to be consistent. So you're not
Sure.
blowing it all during the. So when you have a busy season, don't talk all that money out. Leave it in there and just take X amount every month, issue yourself a payroll, treat yourself as an employee.
Right.
So,
Right.
going back to that personal expenses, do you see a lot of times that business owners are running a lot of personal expenses through the business?
I do. I think you want to do it correctly and legally, and you want to also make sure it makes sense, make sure it's reasonable what you're pulling out of the business personally,
Yeah.
right? Um, and that could be a topic of conversation for many and many podcasts of what that looks like and what IRS rules are and whatnot. But I just think it's important to make sure that you're being reasonable with it, and not putting yourself possibly in a pickle for an audit, because that could
Right.
be stressful and it could be devastating to a business if you're not really truly doing things the right way.
Yeah. And I know I'm circling back around to that, but that's probably the number one thing that I see with business owners is that, that they call me up and they want to sell, and they've been treating their business debit card as a personal debit card.
Hmm.
And, most of the money that they're getting out of the business is not coming from their salary. It's not coming from distribution. It's coming from just running tons of personal expenses through the business. And, what you're doing at the end of the day is the lenders are not going to lend for that for a buyer, and then the buyers are not going to, go through a general ledger line by line trying to pull out $10 charges, $50 charges, things like that. Like that's the
Sure.
biggest advice I give to a business owner: stop using your company debit card or credit card as a personal card. Keep your business expenses and your personal expenses different. Take your money as a salary distribution, and then other things like you're talking about. I mean, they got a retirement plan, or if they're doing health insurance, things like that. But I'm talking about the things that are personal expenses that you're running through the business that are illegal. And we all know that they're illegal. And, and I always tell Adam, the thing is, I always tell sellers too, when I'm having this conversation, is that even if you're in the highest tax bracket, for every dollar you're doing that to, you're saving 37 cents on that dollar in taxes. And that's if
Right.
you're at the highest tax bracket. But then when you go to sell your business, you could be losing out on that same dollars, $2, $3, $4, $5 or more. you
Hmm.
know I recently sold a business that was a 12 times multiple. I'd probably never do that again, but so that's $12 per dollar that they're trying to save 37 cents on.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's, well, and, three questions I always say that a business owner should ask before they make any purchase. Are you ready for them?
I would want to hear them.
Question number one: is the purchase what I'm about to make good for the business? Okay. Question number two: is the purchase what I'm about to make good for my client? And then the last question is can the purchase wait? It's a sniff test, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of contractors. They love shiny new equipment. They love shiny new, things that they don't need, that may sit inside their lot 3-4 days of the week, and they're only using it, every so often.
Yep.
I don't have an issue with buying new shiny equipment if you're going to use it, if you need it. But
Right.
oftentimes they make mistakes, and check your ego, amigo. Right? So be reasonable. Okay.
Adam, I love that you brought that up. Because I didn't even think about that for talking to you today about, but I love you bring that up. I mean, obviously, as an owner of business, you want your employees to show up at your customers, place of business or their house with, where the trucks look nice, and they're not all rusted out and they're, barely making it. You want to show a sense of pride in the company and look
Sure.
professional. But on the flip side of that too, I have talked to business owners where and worked with business owners where they're always buying brand new stuff, and they're bragging about, oh, but I keep the nicest stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
vehicles can last, if you're taken care of, they can last a long time and still look good.
Oh,
Because when you go to sell your business, the people are going to buy it. They're going to look at it and go, "Hey, I'm glad you got all those nice trucks, and they're newer trucks, but you're not going to get any additional value
mhm.
for those trucks, because they're going to be looking at the bottom line. I'm paying X amount of dollars for your business. How much is that business making? And if every year you're just pouring so much money into equipment that's not needed, it doesn't look like you're profitable." And you can say, "Well, you don't need all that equipment," but then the buyers start to question. I mean,
Right.
I agree with you. I'm glad you brought that up.
So just like I said, I think once again, reasonable with your purchases, what you need, and run those trucks because they do last.
Yeah.
Don't think just because you have a 60-month or 72-month or 84-month loan on a vehicle that you have to get a new one as soon as that loan is over to replace it. These trucks these days, they're lasting 10, 15 years without an issue. I drive an F-150 that has over 200,000 miles on it. It looks brand new, you know.
Good for you.
So,
Good for you. And anything else that's sticking out to you a lot that you've seen? Big things?
so kind of going hand in hand with that, they're buying shiny new equipment, or their accountant says, "Oh, you actually made a profit this year. We need to spend a little bit to help you with some of your taxes." A good CPA will want to help you tax strategize. So I always recommend meeting with your CPA at least a couple times in the fall before the end of the year to tax strategize on to ways to alleviate some of your tax burden, you know, and maybe you can do something like opening up like a simple IRA or something like that in your business name and fund that versus buying that new truck, because ultimately that's going to come back to you. The simple IRA, the retirement, um, in the long run, and that could still be a tax advantage by doing something like that versus going out and buying a new skid steer or a new truck if you really don't need it, right?
Adam, I maybe I touch base because you're. This is probably more up your alley than my alley, but I do talk from time to time. Talk to a business owner. They're like, oh yeah, I bought this piece of equipment at the end of the year. I didn't need it, but my CPA told me to do it for tax purposes, so that
Yeah,
I've always been like, well, like you're spending money on things you don't need to save
mhm,
on taxes, but
right.
like now you got something you don't need, and I'm not missing anything, right? That's kind of ridiculous, right?
It is, and dealerships. I even see dealerships, put headlines on their websites. Oh, take advantage of. I forget what the tax code or whatever it is. Take advantage of your depreciation this year. Buy your equipment now before the end of the year, and it's like only if you need it. You know,
Yeah,
take those profits, and if you need to offset some of that, and use it somewhere else in your business that can help you. We have, if I may talk about it, we've talked to our CPA, and we have we're actually paying our kids, right? So our
hmm
kids are 15 and 14, and they come in and they fill grass seed bags. They do some marketing. They do some door to door marketing. We pay them, and then the money we pay them, we put into an investment fund for them. That's a way to have more of an expense that would offset some of your taxes versus once again buying that shiny new equipment. So there's some tricks if you have a good CPA that can help you alleviate some of that in a more uh, I guess fruitful way for you down the road.
right. And then I take it you get into a lot with the business owners of, how important it is. I mean, in the green industry, I mean, when you're talking about, lawn maintenance or
Mhm.
fertilization or pest control or things like that, about the routes being really tight.
Right.
How do you deal with that kind of a situation a lot with
Yeah,
your clients?
efficiency is huge. Um, in making sure that you are recouping as much billable time every day out of a 8 hour day or a 10 hour day, whatever you're working. Um, we use a industry software that allows us to build a budget and then to estimate off of our budget and then to know our cost, break even, and selling price on anything that we estimate, whether it's a $70 lawn or a $50,000 landscaping job. So that helps us. But back to the routes, it's making sure you're charging for your drive time, your logistics. I always say that I can drive to your house, Jim, which is hours and hours and hours away, and do a landscape job for you if you're willing to pay for my time there and for my logistics. You
Right.
know, if you're a landscape contractor and you're servicing a property 10, 15, 30 minutes away and you're not charging for logistics into your estimate, you're losing money there too.
Yep. That windshield time can kill you. It really
Right.
can. I had a maintenance company a few years ago. I talked to them a couple years before they were ready to sell, and they had I forget how many accounts they had, but they had a good amount of accounts, and they were making good profit. And then a couple years later, they actually decreased the amount of customers that they had. They got rid of all the outliers of the customers, and they just kept it really condensed. They raised their prices a little bit, and
Hmm.
and it was night and day. I mean, it was
Right.
profitable the first time I talked to them. A couple years later, by just firing customers that where their techs were out there on the wind, spending too much time in windshield time, they
Hmm.
became so much more profitable, and they had less employees and less stress and everything
Right.
like that. I think, and I know the people listening, they're like, yeah, I mean, it's obvious, I know that, my routes need to be tight, but I don't think sometimes people really think about how much that impacts their
Sure.
business and the bottom line.
Ultimately, what landscapers are selling is their time. Time is our inventory that we're selling, right? If you go to a Best Buy store, for instance, their inventory is computers, their inventory is maybe some appliances, their inventory software, whatever. That's Best Buy's department stores. That's their inventory. How do they protect that? They're protecting it by a point of sale system. They have security cameras monitoring their inventory. They have a security guard at the door. Well, I asked landscape contractors, how are they protecting their inventory, which is their time? And that's
Yeah.
where it goes back to, efficient morning rollouts, not wasting time there. It goes back to eliminating gas station stops. I helped a landscape contractor stop allowing his team to go to a gas station every day and get bags of ice. And in like 3 months, the payroll that he was saving with his crews, he could buy himself an ice machine back at his shop.
Yep. Yep.
Something simple like that, right?
Yep.
Time is our inventory, and we need to make the most out of it as a landscape contractor.
Gosh, I'm so glad we're talking today, Adam. And I know I keep saying that, but I really am. A couple of the biggest lawn and landscape businesses that I've sold, they have ice machines,
Mm-hmm.
at their shop, to pack up. I've sold a couple where they have actually had fuel, gasoline,
Right.
and the people,
Pumps at their
the
shop.
trucks will be all gassed up right there, and
Mm-hmm.
because all those stops at the 7-Eleven and everywhere filling up on gas, that's all time being taken away.
Right.
Huge.
And crews of 3, 4, 5, or 6. I just cringe when I see that. When I see these trucks go down the road with huge crews in the trucks, I love to have just crews of 2 with quality equipment on the trailer or the truck. I believe that's the most efficient. Um,
Really?
I see oftentimes crews of 5 or 6 going out and doing commercial properties, mowing maintenance, and I always ask the owner of the business, well, what happens um, if Jim or Jose calls in sick? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, does the crew still go out and get the job done? He's like, yeah. So why are we then paying for that extra person on the crew if the job is still getting done?
Right.
So look at that too. Um, I'm a big believer in, if you're going to send a large group of people to a big job, maybe it's 2 crews of 2, and then they could split up from there after that big job is done. But man hours are man hours, however you look at it. And if you can eliminate that windshield time, that can really save you a lot of money.
So you prefer the crews to be smaller crews and spend more time on the job than larger crews and spend less time on the
I
job?
do, yeah, because I feel like that third person or even more, there's just so much more. Um, not a lot of focus time on what the task actually is at hand, and I feel like that third person or fourth person just doesn't really pay to have on board as much as what they think.
Yeah. One thing that I always get worried about with business owners too, I mean, it makes it really, really hard to sell. But it's also like, if you're not selling, gosh, I feel like it's so scary. And I've heard, I've heard horror stories directly from business owners themselves about high client concentration, having
Mm-hmm.
that one client that makes up 50, 60% of their business. They have multiple locations where they're dealing with, and, you see that too with the high client concentration,
Oh
or
yeah,
is it the revenue?
yep, yep, definitely. I think top line sales is a mindset trap. Always wanting to sell more, 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 more when you can't get your profitability where you want it in the first place.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a $800,000 business doing 20% profit than $1 million business doing 10% profit.
Exactly.
You know,
You're more profitable, one, but
Mhm.
two, you're also reducing all that stress too. I mean, that's
Right,
again, the more employees you have and the more equipment you have, I mean, everything, it just adds that much more stress. So yeah, absolutely. It's not just you're being more profitable, but you're probably, the business is just less stressful for you as a business
sure,
owner.
sure.
And I see too that, like, the people that have high client concentration, 50, 60% of their business is coming from one client. Buyers look at that, and buyers, like, they're scared. They're like, hey, if I acquire the business, I lose that one client. I've lost 50, 60% of the business overnight. So usually the buyers won't move forward in a situation like that. And if they do move forward in a situation like that, they're going to turn around and make this and penalize the seller and say, hey, and put some back money in there and saying, hey, we're going to hold some money back post closing, and that client's got to stay with us for X period of time before we pay
Sure.
you, and da da da. And now you're shifting into a situation where that client may leave, just because the new buyer's not providing the same quality of service
Mm-hmm.
that the owner did, but you're stuck in that hard, I'm not saying somebody should fire the biggest client, but just as they grow their business, try to reduce that client concentration. I think keeping it on your biggest client under 10% of the revenue is
Sure.
important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely.
And even if you're not going to sell your business, this is what I was saying earlier. Even if you're not selling your business, you lose that client with 50% of your revenue, and overnight you're hurting yourself, you're hurting the company, you're hurting your family, you're hurting your
Right.
employees. Like I've heard that time and time again, where I lost my biggest client, and
Mm-hmm.
their business is just goes it just hurts a lot around the whole thing.
Right.
Any other big advice, Adam?
Um,
Easy pickings. I know you probably
yeah,
have to each person, each company you deal with, you're talking to them,
I would
specifically about their business.
I would say it's really, really probably the number two thing that I would say businesses should focus on is basically increasing their revenue per hour, increases your profitability. And people ask me, well, what do you mean by that? And what I mean by that is, and I know you, Jim, you probably enjoy seeing a lot of maintenance work in businesses because that's routine work.
Hmm.
But if a business does have a mix, or if they're a landscape only business, I recommend increasing revenue per hour. And what I mean by that is doing high revenue work, such as things like landscape lighting. If When I cut a lot of grass back in the day, I was averaging maybe $125 a man hour. When I go out and install, I'm saying revenue per hour. When I go out and install landscape lighting, it's not uncommon for us to be at $300 or $400
Wow.
revenue hour. You know what I mean? Because we have our materials in there. We have our materials in there, and we're able to get in and out on a residential home, putting in landscape lighting for four, five, six, $7,000, and we're in and out in a day. You can't make that
Hmm.
kind of money when you're mowing in a day typically. So
Hmm.
it's important for the owner and or any salespeople to know is to sell that more expensive work. If I'm doing a simple landscape install at your house, Jim, and on the corner of the house, we need to put something that's ornamental, something tall, right? I would be silly to put in a $30 maiden grass or a pampas grass when I could put in a $400 Japanese maple. I'm going to make more profit and more revenue per hour if I put in that Japanese maple, right? So
Hmm.
increase your revenue per hour and your profitability goes up as well.
And it'll be nicer too for the homeowner
Yeah.
or the business owner
Now you got
that's
to get
putting
the
it in there.
homeowner to say yes, and price
Right.
matters. What's their budget, but sell them the expensive branded pavers versus the cheaper pavers when you're putting in the patio. You got to be a good salesperson. You got to explain why that value is there, and you're going to make more money.
Right. 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 I'm glad we had that conversation. You and I could probably go on for a couple hours about how to, somebody could do to make their business better. You consulting them on to make their business better, and obviously it comes down to that person's specific business. And I
Sure.
could go on for a long time about things that a business owner should do, before they get ready to sell, at least a couple years out. And before we switch topics, I just want to throw in there real quick that if you are thinking about selling your business in the next couple of years, I think you should reach out to Adam. You should reach out to somebody like me, whether it's me or somebody else that specializes in selling lawn and landscape type businesses, because having those conversations and having that broker looking at the financials and talking to you and picking your brain, you can fix those holes that the buyer is going to be looking at, and may dissuade buyers from moving forward, or maybe not offering you the best price possible or getting the best terms or anything like that. And obviously, Adam's not just helping business owners that are looking to sell; he's helping business owners that just want to become more profitable at the end of the day. But so reach out to Adam, and for me, seriously, reach out to me or somebody like me, 2 or 3 years before you're ready to sell, and just have a conversation about it. But I wanted to switch it up a little bit. You and I were talking a while back ago about the landscape management network software. Can you
Sure.
touch base a little bit on that?
Sure. So Landscape Management Network, or LMN for short, is a software that we use at Linnemann Lawn Care and Landscaping, and we're also LMN software certified consultants. And what the software does is it's really a very robust software and it helps a company operate from the time the phone rings all the way through invoicing and scheduling. The software um, makes you build a budget, and it's really like a lifestyle budget. So I always say that you put in there your equipment, things that you have, maybe some things that you need or want. Maybe it's potential raises that you're going to give your employees, but you put all that into the budget. You put in how many man hours you have to sell, how many people you're going to have on staff, and how many hours you're going to sell. Then, long story short, it ends up spitting out your cost, break even, and selling price on every job that you estimate. The software is a CRM. It's scheduling. It helps with invoicing, job costing. It does basically everything a business really needs to run efficiently. Um, so that's one of the softwares that we use at Linnemann Lawn and Landscaping. We are certified in that software. We help implement that software. That's kind of another bucket or a core service offering at the Green Executive. My wife is the one that does most of the traveling and travels to companies and spends 3 to 5 days with them, helping them get that software up and running. It's pretty robust. It's
Really? How does that compare against Real Green? Like, what's the
Real
difference between
Green is
the
going to
Real
be
Green and
more focused on like fertilization.
hmm
At least from what I've researched years ago, this software can do anything in the green industry. I think it does very well snow removal, landscape construction, and it does well on maintenance too. But it's very robust. So it's just one of the industry probably top 3 or 4 softwares that are out there. We know it inside and out, and we help others implement.
I know you have
But
a big passion about LMN. I
I
know
do,
that you really, really like that. I know that you're an authorized, what do you say, an authorized trainer or an
yeah,
authorized,
trainer,
yeah,
right?
but I know that you have a real passion about that software. It's not just you're selling it, you use it in your business itself
Well,
and you love it.
I'm a believer in it, and that's because so as far as reoccurring revenue, what we do at Linneman still, we got out of mowing 3 years ago. Truth be told, once again, I know you like reoccurring revenue, but we kept
I
the
do.
fertilizer.
My buyers do, so I do. Well, they're not my
We
buyers, but buyers do, so I do.
sure,
Yeah, go ahead.
but we kept the fertilization where we were visiting 7 times a year, treating their lawn, things like that. So that's our reoccurring part of our revenue at
Okay,
Linneman Lawn
perfect.
Care. But what we realized when we implemented LMN software back, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, was that we were cutting lawns and we were cutting lawns for free because we did not know our cost, our break even, and our selling price. Back 2 years ago, we had to be at $67 as a minimum to do a postage stamp size lawn. And years ago, we were probably doing them for like $50. So we were cutting lawns for free. And I was like, why am I doing that 30 times a year at a customer's property? And it's just like, what's the definition of insanity, right?
Right,
You
right.
know, I feel like I just needed to have a hammer and just kind of keep hitting myself in the head every week I went there because I didn't know any better. So no, the software allows you to know your numbers.
That goes back to, and I know we're talking about the software, but that goes back to I sometimes, business owners are like, I've got 1,000 accounts, and they're bragging about how many accounts they have, and it's kind of like what you were talking about, with the revenue, focusing on the revenue. Sometimes they focus on having a large amount of a customer base, and which is great, but you just got to make sure, like you said, that it's worth it. Having
Right.
1,000, having 800 might be better than having 1,000, like you
Sure.
said.
We
So
talked earlier about would you rather have $1 million company doing 10% or a $800,000 company doing 20%?
yeah,
Profitability is so important. It drives me nuts that the national trade magazines are posting the top 150 businesses in the country. I could care less about a $500 million business if they're not making money. I want to know what the top 150 businesses are that are profitable businesses.
the most profitable, and
Yes,
how they're becoming the
right.
most profitable.
Because some of those that are being advertised are going bankrupt and well, they
Right.
have, you know what I mean? And they're on that list. Sales means nothing if you're not making money.
Yeah, you're focusing on revenue. You're focusing on your clients and the number of clients you have, really at the end of the day, it should be focused on the profitability. I mean, outside of things like, providing good customer service and doing a good
Sure.
job and, things like that. I mean, we know that's all part of it, but if you're going to keep, going to focus on key numbers, it's not like, oh, I want to hit 1,200 accounts next year. Oh, I
Mhm.
want to hit, X amount of dollars of revenue. It should be, keep the focus on the profitability of the business because that, at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So. All right, good. Anything else that like you suggest or use in as far as technology in the lawn and landscape
Mm,
arena?
so Element is time tracking also, and then the time tracking we use for job costing for um, using budgeted versus actual hours as a KPI, a key performance
Mhm.
indicator. So that's another part of the software. Time tracking and that technology there is so important. Our crews have either a phone or a tablet out in their truck, so they're clocking in and out of the jobs. So that'd be technology with that. Um, I can't really think of anything else technology wise.
Even the LMN, you're talking about, I know some people that own smaller companies might be listening like, I don't need all that technology. We're just out there mowing lawns and, we're just doing this service or that service. We don't need all that technology stuff. It doesn't apply to our field. I feel like the green space, and tell me if you're wrong. I've been selling businesses for nearly 25 years. You've been in the space for at least 30 years. It's changing over time, right? I
It
mean, the
is.
better businesses are getting. It's not a matter of just going out there doing the job, mowing the lawn, being done, and to really maximize and compete out there,
Right.
you got to implement that technology. That's just
Sure. Sure.
where it's going.
Yeah. AI is the new thing now, right? So whether it be, how are you using that in your business? It amazed me back about a month ago because I'm still learning AI. Did you know you can go onto something like Chat? Is it GPT or G something?
Chat
Yeah,
GPT, yeah.
and you can ask it to write me a job description for a landscape installer, and it will spit out a job description for a landscape installer for you. I
I
mean,
use Chat GPT a lot. I shouldn't say all the time, but a lot. It's
mhm,
much more efficient. Even as simple as I have to send an email. If it's a
mhm,
quick email, no. But like sometimes you're putting together an email for a big client or a big association for a speaking engagement, whatever it is. I'll put my thoughts into the Chat GPT. I don't even have to think about
mhm,
how I'm wording it. I'm just doing a brain dump of the thoughts that I want to get across, and you hit yeah, it submit, and
mhm.
it's a nice polished email
Right,
with your thoughts, and it's
but
great. And social media, you can do with post for come up with things for social media
right.
and your marketing, and
And by having things such as that technology to help you build job descriptions, to maybe help you build a policy manual, even if you have
Mhm.
to tweak it, it's getting you started. Having those types of things in place in your business makes the business more saleable,
Right,
right?
right, yep. And the things that I do a lot on there too, Adam, is that I'll use ChatGPT. Like I'll know the answers to things, but that way you're not trying to brainstorm for an hour. It's kind of like you put it in there, it spits out an outline or a checklist of things, and then you can go through, like you said, some things don't apply and
Mhm.
other things they it didn't include, but it gives you that foundation and it just cuts out so much time. Yeah.
Right.
And AI, I
Um,
think, is just going to keep moving forward. I think technology, I think people are thinking, oh, yeah, we're in the green space, how much is technology going to affect us? I think it's going to affect us a lot. I
right.
really do.
Technology. One more thing while I'm thinking about it. We use Zoom on a lot of our coaching clients with our with our landscape clients. That's how we coach over virtually over Zoom. I just started using, I think it's called Fathom, which is with Zoom. It's basically a AI recorder, and at the end, it automatically spits out like a summary of what the conversation was on the Zoom with action points. That's
Hmm.
awesome. Just think if um, you were selling a landscaping job to a $50,000 $100,000 landscaping job to a customer, and if you started doing your sales proposals to a customer over something like Zoom, if you couldn't do it in person, how it can take those notes and it can document everything for you.
Right,
awesome
right. You're
stuff.
not taking notes the whole time. You can record the call. Because I do that too when I'm talking when I take a seller when I list a business for sale. One of the first things I do is I interview the seller for about 2.5 hours. This is after we list it, so that I can talk intelligently about the business to potential buyers, so that we can put together the information packets, confidential information memorandums, things like that for buyers,
Right.
and it allows me. And obviously the seller knows that I'm recording it, but it allows me to focus on the seller and really understand them. And it's recording the whole call. So we have a whole transcript, but it's also giving a summary of it as
Yep.
well. And that way I'm not sitting there taking notes, and I can concentrate on the business owner, but it also, there's no way anybody can take notes that quickly as
Sure.
well, and it's just fantastic.
Right.
I
Techno-
recently saw, a quote that was, artificial intelligence is not artificial. It's real intelligence. It's just not human intelligence. And I was like,
right.
wow, that's
Yeah.
really cool. And another quote I heard recently is that artificial intelligence is not going to take people's jobs away. It's going to take the jobs away from people who don't know how to use it, you know?
That's another true fact. I believe that.
Yeah. And I know that I look at my age group, I'm in my mid 50s. And I remember my father, when he was about my age, computers were just starting to become big in offices, like they were, becoming big in the offices and stuff like that. He had adapted to the computers, and the people that his age didn't adapt, they're out. And that's the one thing I'm looking at is at my age, I'm like, I have to do the same thing because technology is just moving. You got to stay on top of it. Just because you've done something the same way for 30 years in your case and 25 years in my case, you got to adapt to that technology and move forward and be one of the people that are on the leading front of usage of that technology.
Sure.
So you can be more competitive. Well, I want to go over a little bit more about what services you offer, because we talked about the consulting and we talked about the LMN software. I know you do bookkeeping and other things, and I think you offer so much to business owners, and I just want to you to share with us what other services you guys offer over there at Green
Sure.
Executive.
So Profit First Implementation, which is a cash flow management system, LMN software implementation, and then Green Industry bookkeeping services. We're advanced QuickBooks Pro advisors. And so we do books for dozens of landscaping lawn care companies throughout the US, all virtually through QuickBooks Online. So we do that. And then back to the Profit First, like I said, it's a cash flow management system. So we do coaching through that platform. Are you familiar with Profit First as far as like the setup of that and kind of
Yep.
what it may be similar to? Kind of like the Dave Ramsey envelope system.
Yep.
We're taking our money and we're allocating to other bank accounts, which is going to be your profit, owner's pay, a tax, and your operating expense account.
Hmm. And what I think great about and I'm really excited to get to something in a minute. I'm super excited about getting something in a minute. But staying on this with the bookkeeping and the accounting, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, look, I know like me specializing in the green industry, I know what the ratios and the benchmarking for that industry should be. Whereas, and it's the same thing like you own a lawn or a landscape business and you are just using a general bookkeeper or general accountant. They're doing the pizza shop down the road. They're doing, the manufacturing plant across town. They're doing all of these different types of businesses. But when they're working with you, the space, and you're concentrating just in the green industry.
Mhm.
So the ratios. You're like, why? Wait, hey, why is your cost of goods so high, or why is your labor cost? And maybe you're pointing things out and catching things that you could point out to the business owner and make their business more efficient. That's correct, right?
It is. It is. In our bookkeeping services, we do pretty detailed work to where we do receipt forward bookkeeping. So we do require our clients to upload the receipts, and we reconcile those receipts to the statements. So that is, I think, a key part of what we offer. Um, one thing I always mention is, a few years ago we had one of my own team members went up to a landscape supply yard, and made a purchase of some landscaping rock, and the cashier at the landscape supply yard accidentally hit the button for a pellet smoker, because they also sell barbecue grills there. And he
Hmm.
brought the receipt back. He didn't look at the receipt. He turned it in, and we caught, because we gather our receipts and we put those and enter those in the QuickBooks. We caught that $1,100 error because of doing receipt forward bookkeeping. So that's always really important too. Um, we, so if I can grab this here real quick, Jim. This is a little bit old school, not that great in technology. I don't know if you can read that. Maybe it's backwards, but it says entire client name, which division and what it was for. And all this is a return address stamp that we have all our clients stamp the receipts, and then by entering these in, and if it's set up properly, companies can run P&Ls by divisions, and then also do job costing a lot easier too.
Wow, holy cow. Adam, I love it because it's like we were talking about technology and how important it would be to use. And then you're pulling out that stamp, which is just so simple and
Right.
easy, but it makes things so I can understand. I hope the listeners can understand that probably understand like that simple little thing that you came up with, how much easier it makes for the bookkeeping
Hmm.
purposes. That's great. Great
So
idea. Did you come up with that, or did you steal that from somebody?
no, Sarah came up with it just as an easy way to, say, what's this purchase for, right? Because it can be for anything. If you go to Home Depot or nowadays on Amazon, you can't tell. A lot of
Yeah.
bookkeepers will just like own an Amazon receipt and put it towards something. But if you want to get detailed bookkeeping, you need to know what that receipt's for. So that was our way to put it towards a client, and then maybe it's for your fertilization division, maybe it's for your snow division, maybe it's for your landscaping
Yeah.
division, and then to make a note on there what that purchase is for
And
to make sure
you
it's
get in the habit.
legitimate. Yeah,
You just get in the habit. You come back from the store, you the stamp, fill it out, and you just get in that habit. And yeah, that's
right.
fantastic. I love it. I
So,
love it. Hey, I did not want to before, and there was something I want to talk to you about that I'm really excited to talk to you about. But before we move on, I wanted to just touch base a little bit more on that profit first approach.
sure.
Because is there anything else you want to add to that? Because I know that is extremely important, and I didn't
Um,
want us to kind of brush over that.
no, so I guess just profit first is making profit a habit in your business, not just an event.
Hmm.
Generally accepted accounting principles is sales minus expenses equals profit. Profits last, and what most people look at it as, what accountants look at it as. We flip that equation and we say sales minus profit equals expenses. So I always say, what's the most important thing in your life, Jim? Family?
Well, my family, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So you make time for that. That's what you emphasize to your friends, your family. That's what's most important to you in your life, in your personal life. In a business life, um, a businesses should be making profit a priority. Now, some people will say, "Oh no, it should be employees. They should be the priority." Well, they are, but
Yeah.
without profit, you can't have a long-term sustainable business.
Right.
And if without profit you can't give your employees raises, without profit you can't reinvest back into the business. Profit really, if you're a for-profit business, it really should be a priority to make a business truly long-term sustainable. So that's why we flip that formula, and we always fund the profit account every time we make a bank deposit.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's a fantastic way to look at things. Fantastic way. So we only got a few more minutes. I wanted to touch on this, and maybe some people won't understand how important this is, but I know you set up peer groups too, right?
We do some peer groups. Yep.
I mean, can you talk a
Um,
little bit about that?
Yeah, so those look like small knit groups, 6 to 8 business owners, all in the lawn and landscaping business, that are non-competing companies. Um, we meet for like an hour and a half once a month. We do um, we talk anything from profit first to processes and procedures to any issues that the business owner may be dealing with currently in their business. So it's a shared approach that everybody can be on board with and help each other grow their businesses. Now, peer groups isn't for everybody. I do a lot of just personal one-on-one coaching. I think a lot of business owners like that because they like to have more time with a coach or a consultant versus just, 20 minutes of time and an hour and a half or 2 hours once a month. That's what you kind of get with peer groups. But peer
Hmm.
groups, you also get the benefit of other like-minded professionals in there as well. So it's a personal preference, but we do peer
Yeah.
groups as well.
I see. I think the combination of the consulting and the peer group would be the best. And the reason I'm so excited about the peer group is because, I for selling businesses, I've gone to conferences for years. I've belonged to a bunch of different associations, and I go to multiple conferences a year, and go to workshops and classes. I teach workshops. I do speaking. I listen to speeches. Like you're sharing all that information, but I say that probably the thing that's probably impacted my business as a business broker more than anything that I've done over the years is I belong to a peer group, and there's 12 of us, and the other 11 brokers are some of the best brokers across the country. They are really, really good. And it's funny enough, we do the same thing, an hour and a half once a month.
Okay.
We get on a Zoom call, and then we meet once a year for 2 days in person.
Right.
And it's just you're listening to competitors that you have respect for that
Yeah.
are really, really good at what they're doing, and they bring a different viewpoint and just share. Like, I know our peer group is like we've all signed confidentiality agreements, and we tell each other everything,
Hmm.
everything and anything, and you walk away and you learn. And like last year, I was at three industry conferences for mergers and acquisitions, and I also went to my peer group, and we went away for a couple of days with my peer group. And there's 12 of us. We sat around in a room for 2.5 days. I learned more. I learned more in that 2.5 days than I do at the conferences, and I love
Hmm.
those monthly calls. So that's why I know you do the peer groups, and I just wanted to stress I think the peer groups are awesome. But I think the
And
consulting, in addition to the peer groups, is what is the perfect combination.
yeah, peer groups, you had talked about conferences. Those are important for contractors to attend as well.
Hmm.
I can't tell you that, that I go to industry conferences a couple of times a year and I always come back with pages of notes and ideas. It's just sometimes getting away from the daily work and grind of your business in the same setting allows you to really just kind of your mind to be free and start thinking about other ways and new ideas. Heck, I go on vacation in Mexico, sit on the beach, and things will pop up. My mind is like, oh, yeah, I need to work on this, or I'll read something, and I'll start taking notes and put it into my phone, and then work on things when I get back. So getting out of your normal work zone just to be able to think can be
Yep.
very beneficial.
Yep, I love that. Mine's not so much on vacations. I mean, we do. Me and my wife and I do take vacations, but what I find really helpful is, and it's kind of hard to do it this time of the day for people in the green space because they're out there working already. But waking up first thing in the morning, I take a walk for an hour, hour and a half, and it's just me and nobody else. And I don't even listen to music. I don't listen to podcasts. I'm just in my own thoughts, and I let my mind. I don't say, "Oh, I'm going to think about this today." I just let my mind wander, and
Hmm.
that's where I feel like I'm the most creative. Get the most creative ideas for my business is being by myself and getting away and just let my mind wander.
Right.
But I think the vacations are really important. And going back to those conferences, Adam, I'm glad you said that about your industry. I've gone to some conferences in the green industry, but I'm not. I'm a service provider for the green industry. I'm not in the industry itself, so it
Hmm.
doesn't affect me as much. Whereas I go to the M&A conferences, but I feel when I go to the M&A conferences, yeah, you learn so much, and you come back with all these ideas. And I think that people in the M&A world or people in the green industry space, you're caught up so much in day-to-day activity and you're working. It's nice to get out and see what other people are doing and how they're doing it, and then listening to some of the best people out there that have really turned their business around or what they're accomplishing. I think it goes a long way. And I don't know about you, and I want to ask you because I know in my industry, like I learned so much at the workshops. I learned so much at the classes. I teach workshops and classes too, but I love listening to other people. But I feel I learned just as much or even more sitting at the bar in the evening after the classes and just
Hmm.
hanging out with other professionals in my industry and
Right.
just chatting and talking and saying, just BSing. I feel like I learned just as much or more.
Right.
Did
No, I
you
agree.
find that at the conferences?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over a drink and a steak dinner.
And then you build those relationships with the people around the country, and then
Hmm.
when you want to get some input from somebody, call them up and say, "Hey, Adam, hey, this is Jim. I was blah blah blah. Blah. What do you think?" And it's fantastic. Adam, I love that you are on today. I definitely want to have you on again because I feel like we covered a lot of topics, and I feel like we could even cover more topics, as well as I think that we could get more in depth in some of these topics. So, would you mind coming on again some point?
No, I'd love to. I'd love to continue the relationship and collaborate more and help other green industry professionals succeed and um, come into retirement one day.
I love that. I mean, because that's what it's all about is helping each other to get the goals and reach the goals that they're trying to reach. So, anyways, if you're watching these videos and you like these videos, please hit subscribe. Please hit like. Love for you to comment. Want to make sure that you get more information in the future. So make sure you do that so you get notified when a new video comes out. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.
Take care.